Excellent. Well, Kobus, I've been looking at your profile on LinkedIn, and it's so interesting what you've done over the last 25, 26 years. And I've just seen that you started the Creativity Conference in 95. Is that correct? About 20.
Yeah, that's right. We had it running for 24 years. I think after the US one, the one in Buffalo that I've been involved in too, this is the second longest running one. And we also had one for educators specifically, back to back, while we had these 40 people in South Africa that ran for 13 years. But in both instances, we had sponsorships because, so many people can't pay. So we had to get sponsors. And that ended last year. So we're thinking of doing an online 25th one in end of October or so, somewhere there. And then, 2 days for business and 1 day for educators. But it's still in the thinking stage. We're not sure if we're going to do it. But that's the idea.
Well, I was doing a PhD in creativity, and I wanted to attend conferences. And at the same time, I was a teacher, a full-time teacher. So what I found about the conferences when I was looking to attend creativity conferences is that, one, they were too far away and I couldn't take time off during term time to attend them, or they just seemed too expensive. I mean, I did go to a conference in California because I was invited to speak in California, but it just seemed very long from London to California. It just seemed a very long way to go to speak for 20 minutes.
It's a very expensive. Now, in what we've done, the speakers, when they come here, we host them for a week. So when they get here, and it's normally nice because our conferences were in the bushveld, so in a resort, and so they could be there and it's good sightseeing and so on. So that was very enjoyable for them to stay over for a week in South Africa. That was the sort of all paid kind of thing. And our fees are very low. I know the fees in the US and so on, it's incredibly expensive. Now our fees were very low. The last one last year, I think, was that was all inclusive for like 3 days with all meals included, everything included. The whole total package was probably less than £400. That was everything included. That was attending the conference, all meals, everything else. And I think that was becoming a problem for most people. Is to, if you travel to Canada, where I've presented many times, and the US, whatever, the traveling costs, everything is just too much. It's just too much, and. So there has to be alternatives for this, for sure.
So Kobus, the theme for the conference this year is Presence, Emergence and Impact. Now, let me begin with your conferences that you've been organizing since 95. Now, when the first conference that you organized created a presence for you, and that presence has led to an emergence. Maybe like when you first organized your first one, you didn't know that it would carry on for 25 years. It's that's an emergent process, isn't it? And no doubt the conference has made an impact on what you're doing, and perhaps it's transformed your presence in some way. So start with when you first had that seedling idea to create that conference. What did you imagine? Did you imagine that it would carry on for at least 25 years, or what did you think? So let's start then.
In my case, it was because it, in a sense, linked with South Africa's history, because it was a year after we became a democracy, and it was also the year in which I wrote a television series called Creating a Miracle. I wrote that with Sidney Pons. Sidney Pons, the co-inventor of creative problem solving and one of my mentors, one of the giants in creativity, came to South Africa, and we wrote this 13-part episode looking at why South Africa did not have a revolution. If you look at all the world was expecting a kind of, it never happened. And so what we did a sort of an analysis of why it happened and the process it followed. And it's very, very clear that the negotiators followed a sort of creative process to eventually get to a solution. with leaders like Nelson Mandela, de Klerk, Desmond Tutu, and so on. It was an amazing period. So I thought that that would be a very, very good, for me, an ignition in a certain sense, to start a creativity conference. So
that's fine.
anyway, that it would be for me to start to ignite something, and I thought that a conference would be a creativity conference, because there's never been one in Africa in any case, and there were only one or two in the world, and would be part of the journey of South Africa, starting to form and become a country, a democracy. And so that's where I started. And then because I was already in the creativity arena at that stage, I studied at Georgia University, and I was linked to many of these creativity leaders in the world. And they all, not one of them said no. They all said, no, geez, they would like to come. They would like to be part of this sort of historic kind of thing, historic event. And so, but never believing or thinking that this would go on for, let's say, 25 years or so. But there's sort of an energy, when you create something like this, there's a sort of an energy, something that, a kind of a connection that people want to come together again. Because creativity people often find there's no space for them. So to find a space like this where they can be together for a period of time or some time would be, it's sort of an enormous kind of thing. So that's what it is. It's everything is bothering me and wondering. Let me just, sorry. Anyway, sorry, there's a lot of commotion going on. So yeah, in a sense, it generated its own energy, and that just carried on. The interesting thing about the US one, because I don't know if you've been involved or know that the conference in Buffalo, it is actually the mother of all conferences, started by Osborne and Pons, I think in 1954. It's been going for, 68 years or so. The interesting thing there, because I was on the board there, and I was part of it for nearly 2 decades, it's that it became clear that people later on, in a sense, didn't even care what was presented. They just wanted to be together. And that kind of togetherness was very, very special. And I think that's the momentum of that kind of conference.
Yeah, it's because it's through the relationships, isn't it? I've noticed that very often at conferences, yes. And I'm sure most people have, that more than learning from the speakers who are on the stage, what we learn through networking and just, sharing ideas with other people at the conference who may not have presented, but they have wisdom that might be more relevant to us. And so
it's a massive relationship builder in a sense, and it's sort of more than, it's kind of like a spiritual connection that sort of in this creativity world that we move in. It's more than this creativity, because Paul Torrance always said that creativity, to be successful, to work, can never stand alone. There are other, like courage. I've also written so much about courage and whatever, because it's closely linked. And to start a conference, I can tell you, there's a lot of courage you need to take this leap, with enormous courage.
That's right, because especially that very first one, that it's the very first one that requires the most courage, because you can be rejected. The very first one that I did, even though I was researching creativity and had been researching creativity for a long time, I do remember getting a couple of comments from people who believed that they were already very established in the field of creativity, criticizing what I was doing and saying it wasn't very creative.
You will always get that. I remember Paul Torrance, one of his bits of wisdom was that you must be okay to be a minority of one. That's what his famous words, and that's often the case when you do this, when you start something like this, which could be riveting and change the world in a sense. There's always objections. People will kind of pull you down, stab you in the back or whatever. But that's where courage comes into it. You see, that's why courage is so closely linked to creativity. And I think when one presents a creativity conference, there's always be little space for courage, because it's very, very kind of important here.
Yeah, and you've written 90 books, and I'm sure every book that you've written has led to an emergence of things that wouldn't have taken place if that book wasn't present.
Absolutely. And again, I always say that, you know, I had the best mentors in the world in creativity, and I'm really thankful, and, you know, for that. But again, Torrance always said that, you know, when you have something to say, but create a book and then make it available, it must be usable. That's all, you know, that's all my brain instruments is immediately. If you're a parent, how do I become a whole brain parent or a leader or a manager, whatever it is, it must be, you must be able to apply it immediately. Otherwise, to me, that has very little meaning. It must be applied.
Did you actually meet Torrance?
Sorry?
Did you actually meet Torrance?
Yeah. Look, when I had a doctorate, and I was kind of looking to go specialize and to move further. And so I took a sabbatical and eventually ended up with Torrance and the University of Georgia, by far at that stage in the 1980s, the leader in creativity. And so I came back to South Africa, and then I went back to study under Torrance. I first did a master's, and then I did a post-PhD in identification and development of creative behavior. And he stayed my mentor for 20 years. I was probably closer to him than most people. I was actually on his deathbed, sitting next to him while he was dying. No, we had a very, very close relationship. And he guided me with, you know, so it's such a great privilege to have had him as a great, great mentor. Yeah, he was special. He was a very kind, gentle, special kind of person.
Okay, that's very, very interesting. Yes, because those are internationally famous, the Torrance test.
The giant, yeah, he's an absolute giant. Yeah,
yeah. Well, it's been, you know, I'm so kind of honored to have stumbled across your work. And again, that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the social media platforms such as LinkedIn, because they enable creativity to thrive through our forming connections that otherwise wouldn't have formed.
It does. So what is your, how do you see yourself going forward with this? What is your next steps?
Well, this is also an emergent process. When I started the conference 4 years ago, my main aim was to create a space between academics, entrepreneurs, and educators, because what I find is that each of those domains have a very different concept and approach towards creativity. And I see myself, like, my creativity is in building bridges, is in making connections between you know, the different realms, as it were. And so, you know, I originally started with an intention of doing at least 5 of them, and then let's see what emerges. And so I do feel that it's going to carry on for longer than 5 years. And it's the fact that it's online, it means that it can be international. The fact that it's online and I leave the video conversations, they're evergreen, basically, so that you don't just get one opportunity to see that conversation. It's you know, we can kind of go back and see all 4 years or 5 years, whatever it is. So it's like we're creating value, I suppose, through conversations, because what I found in the very first one that I did was that I had 6 keynote speakers and I had 30 conversations like this. And what I found was that the conversations were more popular compared with those speeches, you see. And then after that, I just thought, well, I'm not going to have the keynote speakers, I'll just have conversations.
So it's conversations, and then it's recorded, and then it's not live. Your conference is not live. It's all
we have
recorded.
Panel discussions on the day. On the 19th of September, we will have 3 live panel discussions as well, in addition to...
The rest would be pre-recorded, and then people can sort of sign in for them at any time.
No, the panel discussion takes place live.
The panel discussions take live, but the pre-recorded conversations, how does that work?
Oh, so they will be scheduled to be played at particular times on that day. And then that's when
on that day, on the 19th.
Yes, yeah, and then they are made public through social media, through LinkedIn, through Twitter, through Facebook, and then through sharing. So that's the way it works. And you know, but the power is in actually having the conversation and seeing what emerges from these different conversations.
Tell me, how many people sort of sign on for this? How many people?
It's
the
more
audience,
to do with, well, in one of the years, like the year before, last year I did 20 interviews, but the year before I did 80 interviews. The year before that, it was about 50 altogether. This year I'm doing 40. So it varies every year, and the audience varies in relation to the network of the people that I interview. So those people who've got a very big network and they share the video with their network, then obviously they get a lot more views and a lot more interactivity.
Okay. Well, this is fascinating. So, well, anytime if you, I'm sorry about this morning, the delay. Next time we will be more, I will be more precise and on time or whatever. But anytime you want to talk to me again, is there anything else you'd like to discuss this morning with me?
Well, I will top and tail this video, like of the main part of our conversation. I'll top and tail that, and then I will send you a link so that you can have a look at it, and then just confirm that it's all right for me to use that section for the conference. And then if you are available on the day, on the 19th of September, which is a Saturday, it's a Saturday, and the 3 panel discussions.
19th. Could be. I'm definitely not. Let me just check. I'm not traveling that day in September. So because we open now, you know, I was in Cape Town last week, and so there were so many forms to fill in before you could travel. You know, gee, it was no. 19th would be okay. More or less, what time?
10 o'clock. 10 o'clock my time, which is
9 o'clock, 11 o'clock our time.
Yeah, could you mark that down then, please, in your diary?
I'll do that now. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
You'll send a link again. Okay. Okay, no, that's good.
I'm so glad that we've connected, because I do see that, you know, like, you know, if we keep this conversation alive between us, I'm sure that there will be an emergence of opportunities and spaces that we.
Absolutely. I actually did present a couple of times at conferences in the UK, just thinking who the organizers were. They were all sort of connections, connections that I had. One of them was actually a winner with me last year of the first Lifetime Tolerance Award. She organized 2 or so, and I presented there. And then there was one at trying to think where, at that university on the Thames, that beautiful private sort of university. I can't remember the name. But anyway, it was there. So there was sort of small conferences, but it wasn't big. But it was lovely, beautiful. But it continued. It was only like a once-off kind of thing. And because I think, as you said, it's too expensive often, you know, for people.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, Kobus, in the last 5 minutes, maybe we could use the last 5 minutes to, if I could ask you to sum up what you, in a nutshell, what do you think is the impact of these creativity conferences that you've been doing for more than 2 decades?
Well, for me, without a doubt, the people who attend the conference that go back to their organizations or their schools or whatever, and they immediately have we've seen this, and of course we monitor it, an impact. So in so many cases, we've seen a culture of creativity emerging in very, very poor schools often. We see that teachers become more creative, fresher ideas. And the shift is interesting too, especially in organizations and schools, that often from problem sort of thinking, problem focus, to a more opportunity thinking and opportunity creation. That is what we've seen. And I think that is the sort of impact. And often it stays with them for years and years and years. And they come back and again they go back and they influence. And we've seen really miracles happen in organizations where people have attended this, leadership specifically. I remember we had leaders from one of our platinum mines attending it. About 22 of them attended our conference. And they went back and they started a creativity program on how to enhance safety on the mines. And it was a major project, how you can think more creatively, making sure there's no accidents and no deaths. And in this particular mine, I think 10 or 11 months after the conference, there was this big banner hanging over the mine saying 1 million shifts, no accidents and no deaths. So it's a massive impact on. But again, the way you set your targets, of course, it was one of the things that Sidney Barnes always said, that your starting point must be correct, because don't come with creative solutions if you don't understand what you're dealing with, your problem. And I think this is what is very important that people don't often understand. So people attending the conferences, they have a challenge in mind, and they can go take that creativity and apply it to that specific, then it really starts to work for you. Otherwise it becomes too general and you don't know where to start. Focus on what is wrong and where you'd like to improve, and that is where you start then generating ideas and so on. And this is what we have found. That, and we also recommend that often to people attending our conferences, sort of sort out in your mind what is you want to get out of this conference, and so on. But the impact was huge. It was, and as I say, in business schools, also of course in sport, because what is interesting that people who attended it in the sporting sort of arenas approached us later on, and we became coaches, mental coaches of our international teams, like the Sevens rugby team who became world champions and so on. We got involved in all of this. So it gave us also opportunity to, to get involved in areas where we've never been involved in. So like certain sport areas of sport, for instance.
Yeah, there is this element of you use the word miracles, that miracles are not planned, they're not conscious. It's as though there's a power which is beyond what we could imagine in terms of our limited perceptions. And
and interesting, every year we sponsored about 40 university students, and even years and years after attending that conference, they would still be applying it in their teaching. It was teaching education students. They would still be applying it. I still get notes today after years and years, 10, 15 years after attending our conferences. They still remember what they learned and they're still applying it. So it's a longevity thing. It's not something that just ends. It really is something that carries on and becomes part of your DNA in a sense.
That's right. That's another important point, is that the impact of those seeds that you've planted, maybe during the conference, the impact of those seeds that were planted may not be apparent until many decades into the future.
Without a doubt. It's something that's, there's in creativity, the thing you learn very quickly is there's something called doing creativity, that is the taught learning, and that's good. You can teach people to come up with more and better ideas in their marketing or selling or teaching, whatever. So that's a doing kind of thing. It's like you teach a top cricketer to stand like this, hold your hands to catch a ball. It's a doing thing, and later on you know exactly how to hold your hands and you are catching the ball. But it has to move away from the doing creativity to the being. Becomes in your being creativity. Then it's not doing. Then you just put out your hands and you catch the ball. It's not like I'm doing it. It's in your DNA. That is exactly what creativity should be, specifically in leadership. Leadership in the sense that that you lead without deliberately even thinking about it. How to lead different kinds of people creatively, and I think if you look at what we've experienced the past few months and the dilemmas that the world have experienced, I'm kind of very disappointed in world leaders, because I don't think any world leader saw this coming. And world leaders, and if you have the creativity, you are supposed to see the future first. You're supposed to be able to anticipate. No one did that, and it's actually terrible, in a sense that we have this, in a sense, leadership gap that's not there. No one saw it. They reacted, and no one saw it coming, and all the signs were there. And if they were able to connect the dots as an anticipator, we would have had a different world now.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, Kobus, thank you so much. And I look forward to speaking to you again for the panel discussion on the 19th of September.